Don Warner.
Well, I prepared some notes, but I got to say at the outset here, I'm overwhelmed by what the public, you folks, are saying to the commission. I've been here just about 3 years. I came from that other socialist state called Washington, too. But I'm so glad I got involved. And I really want to thank you folks because it was other than being on the Parks and Waterways Advisory Board, which I thought I would start to understand kind of what goes on in Kootenai County, it was this education of hearing and watching each of you, almost all the meetings, to include the two gentlemen and lady that are online. And so I've really followed this. I've really followed it, but I think what you're hearing right now is the will of the people. They are speaking. And for you to come back at your meeting next week and try and dance to the tune of putting something in front of the commissioners, if it's the wrong thing, you've not done your job. So let me just read a few things I prepared, and then I'll just talk to you a little bit and we'll conclude. I'd like to thank each of you, as I said, because I know it takes time. I've also been there with you, but you've been putting in the hours. But having reviewed your published analysis of strengths and weaknesses for the forms of government and your recommendations, I, as a Kootenai County voter, have even more concerns because I question the substance of what I may be voting on. Why do I say that? Because you've told us what you think based on the testimony of many Kootenai County leaders, managers, and staff, past and present, and based on the findings of what has worked for other counties across the U.S. Yes, you've answered the mail. But you haven't substantiated or quantified anything based on data, details that would help me as a voter make an informed decision. This team has not identified what the real problems are, and then bringing these issues forward as a means for voters to see clearly why it might make sense to vote for a particular form of government. It just doesn't exist. You put strengths and weaknesses, they're not quantified. They're just a list of stuff came from your Post-it notes and you put them up there. I applaud the process, but it doesn't help me one bit. So if you haven't substantiated or quantified anything based on data or details that would help me as a voter make an informed decision, you've not identified what the real problems are. So why even put this issue on the ballot? Why? You can't back it up. You can't. You haven't. Some of you might say that was not what we were asked to do, meaning the real issues. And I say to you as a voter, you're wasting the time of me, the people behind me, and the people of this county by asking us to go to the polls because the commissioners putting your recommendations on the ballot, I think, are just kicking the can down the road. Kicking the can down the road. And that's exactly what's going to happen if we don't address the real issues. Now, why did the BOCC request this project in the first place? What was the motivation? Was it political? Or could it have been they were truly looking for a way to improve the support to the voters in the county, but weren't sure how to approach it? I don't know. But it's time to drive a stake in the ground and stop the business as usual approach to solving continuing issues. Now, let me just stop and say this. There are issues. There were really a lot of process issues. There's lack of any planning for the future. You heard that very qualified people in leadership, managerial level, and so forth. You all heard that. I heard that. Many of these people heard that. So one thing you could do, if you don't have to do anything because you're hearing the will of voters, to talk about the issue of, is it 3 or 5? I don't think that's the issue. I honestly don't. I think that can be made to work. I think if you went back and you had some guts and determination as a commission to go back to the commissioners and says, we recommend everything stay the same, but we did find some issues and here's what we recommend. That I think you can take to the bank. Because if you take the time, even as part of this process, to bring in some of those key people and start to peel the onion back, peel the layers of the onion back, you're going to find that there are some organizational issues. That's not to say the county doesn't have good people. That's to say there's processes that are broken. There's processes that don't exist. And we as a county, and I want to stand behind Kootenai County as a voter and as a person who lives here, to simply say, I'm proud of my county because they're taking steps not only to save money, taxes, and so forth, but because they're process-driven. They understand what the issues are, and they solve the issues. That's what I think could come out of this. But if you don't, if you disregard what I'm saying, I think you missed the boat, because I don't know when there will be another opportunity, as you've had this year, to address some of the fundamental things that could improve the state of Kootenai County. So, do I really want a government, a form of government? No. I want a well-thought-out, substantive recommendations that will result in a county government that identifies and fixes issues, develops and employs an efficient problem-solving staff, and has a living, breathing roadmap for the future for our county. Thank you.